Okay, welcome to part 4 of the amphibian notes. This section will deal mostly with the classification of amphibians. So the amphibians are located in phylum Caudata, and some of the basic characteristics of amphibians is they have mucus-covered skin, no scales, they don't have feathers, they don't have hair. Usually their larvae are aquatic. They have a 2 atrial, 1 ventricle heart, and they have 1 cervical vertebrae, which means 1 in their neck, and 1 sacral vertebrae, which is 1 in their lower back connecting to their pelvis. And then there are 3 orders. There's order Caudata. Caudata have tails, so they have a long tail. They'll have 2 pairs of limbs, front legs and back legs, and they don't have a middle ear, and these examples would be salamanders and newts. And then we have order Gymnophiona. These are elongated, limbless organisms. They kind of look like a snake or a giant earthworm, and they do have segments. Their segments are specialized for burrowing in the soil. They have a short pointed tail, a very rudimentary left lung. A lot of their gas exchange is just through their skin. And the example here are the Sicilians or Caecilians, however you wish to pronounce it. And then our third order is the Anurans. These are the frogs and toads. They don't have a tail. They have elongated hind limbs for jumping. They have about 5 to 9 pre-sacral vertebrae, so in their pelvis area, with transverse processes. These transverse processes are the points coming off of them, and that's for muscle attachment. And then they have a post-sacral vertebrae that's fused into a urostyle, and that's part of their pelvis as well. They have a tympanum, which is an eardrum, a larynx that helps them vocalize. So talking in general about class Amphibia, we said that they have mucus secretions in their skin. They don't have scales, hair, or feathers. Their larvae are usually aquatic, and they typically have to go through some sort of metamorphosis to become the adult. They do have 3-chambered hearts, 2 atria and a ventricle. And then we said they have cervical and sacral vertebrae. We have salamanders, newts, frogs, toads, and caecilians. So order Caudata, these are the salamanders and newts. They will keep their tail throughout their life. They do not have specialized legs like frogs do for jumping. They do not have a middle ear, so they don't really hear the way we can hear. There are about 400 species. Typically, you'll find them all in the northern hemisphere. Some of them are terrestrial, living on the moist forest floor, and the aquatic larvae have to have like little ponds or puddles or something to survive in. Some of these species can live in caves. The largest North American salamander is the hellbender, and the next slide will have a short video clip so you can see what those guys look like. Okay, order Caudata. These guys will have internal fertilization without copulation. So basically, males will deposit a packet of sperm. The females go and pick it up with their cloaca and store it in a pouch called a spermatheca. And then the eggs are fertilized as they pass through the cloaca. The larvae are similar to the adults, and they have external gills, a tail fin, and a rudimentary tongue. Copulation, by the way, means like actual intercourse, and so the male and female don't really touch each other during this process. The salamander life cycle is they're going to go through a little bit of a metamorphosis. Like I said before, they're going to keep their tail, but larvae do have to survive in water of some sort. And then they go through, you can see how they mature, their legs grow out, and then many of them retain, well, not many, but some of them will retain their gills. There's a lot of different families, so this is our next step down in the classification scheme. Most of on the left side here, the Plethodontiae, most of these guys are fully terrestrial, and the eggs can even be laid on land as long as it's in a moist area, and the young just look like miniatures of the adults. And then we've got newts. These are in the family Salamandriae. Most of their life is spent in the water, and typically they can retain their caudal fins, like their tail fin. The next slide will also have a video showing you a very large example here. Incomplete metamorphosis occurs in some of the species, and this is considered paedomorphic or neotenic. And that means they become sexually mature while they still have larval characteristics. So this guy here, consider that like their common name is a mudpuppy, they keep their gills. These are external gills, and they maintain those as an adult. Moving on to order Gymnophiona, you can see a good example of what they look like here. They look like either a giant earthworm or a snake-looking thing, but they are amphibians. Their name means naked like a snake, and that kind of describes them pretty well. Sicilians or caecilians, there's about 160 species, and they're usually just found in tropical locations. They do burrow, kind of like earthworms do. They look segmented, but they're not, and it's just the way that their skin folds over their muscles, and it helps them burrow better. They have a retractile tentacle between their eyes for chemoreception, so they can push it out and pull it back in, almost to taste their environment. They have skin that kind of covers their eyes, and they're virtually blind. I think they can just sense light and dark. Because they live underground, they don't really need to see. They do have internal fertilization, and some of them will give birth to live young. Some of them lay eggs. Order Anura. These are the frogs and toads. The name Anura, A, means without, and ora means tail. So these guys don't have tails. There's about 4,000 species of frogs and toads, and the distinction between the two is mostly based on perception, believe it or not. According to the Missouri Department of Conservation, the two can be distinguished by the following features. So frogs can have smooth, wet skin. Toads will have dry, warty skin. Frogs have tiny teeth on their upper and lower jaws, and toads do not have teeth at all. Toads will have shorter hind legs than most frogs, and frogs have longer legs that can jump or leap. Toads just kind of hop or crawl. Frogs will lay their eggs singly, in small clumps, in large masses, or as a film of eggs on the water's surface. And toads will lay eggs in long parallel strings. True toads are in the family Bufonidae. So this group here are the Salientia. The frogs and toads can be found in moist environments. That first picture is kind of neat. He's an Amazon horned frog. And then the next one is a cane toad, and he kind of walks with his legs straight out like that. And then I think you've seen the poison arrow frogs, the picture, the one down at the bottom. They come in different colors. They can have little polka dots on them. And they become poisonous because of the type of food that they get in their environment. These guys can live in a range of habitats. You'll find them in moist environments like tropical rainforests. You can find them in deserts. None of them have a tail, and their caudal, or their last vertebrae, are fused into something called a urostyle, and this allows for the muscle attachment to their spine area so that they can jump. And it provides them with good leverage, essentially. They usually have external fertilization. Their little larvae, or babies, are called tadpoles, and they usually don't have limbs until the very end of the larval stage. Family Bufonidae, these are the true toads. There's about 350 species worldwide. All 17 of the U.S. species are in the genus Bufo. Their skin looks very warty, with a special kind of gland behind their eyes that secretes a bad-tasting, poisonous substance. I don't recommend licking a toad because it would taste very awful to you, and that's their defense mechanism, so they don't get eaten very easily. They do have shorter legs that are designed for hopping rather than leaping, or they can crawl, and they typically will burrow into the ground at night. Here we have family Dendrobatae, or Batidae. These are the poison dart frogs. And here's kind of a side view of what their skin looks like. You can see where their poison glands are. They do have mucus glands, and they have chromatophores, so they have the ability to change their skin color a little bit. And that takes us to the end of our amphibian notes. At this point, you should have everything filled in on your note packet, and you can complete the quiz.